What if I told you that your dog has been sending you a warning signal, maybe for weeks, maybe for months, and you've been completely ignoring it? Not because you're a bad dog owner, not because you don't care, but because nobody ever told you what this signal actually looks like. And here's the terrifying part. By the time most people figure it out, it's already too late. Stay with me. Because what you're about to learn in the next few minutes could genuinely change, or even save, your dog's life. Let me start with a story. A woman named Sarah had a 6-year-old golden retriever named Biscuit. Biscuit was the kind of dog that made strangers smile, wagging tail, soft eyes, always excited to greet people at the door. Sarah thought Biscuit was the happiest dog alive. He ate his meals, went on his walks, played in the yard. Everything looked perfect from the outside. But there was one small thing Sarah kept noticing and kept ignoring. She didn't think it was important. Most people wouldn't. 3 months later, Biscuit collapsed in the backyard. The vet gave Sarah news she wasn't prepared for. And the first thing the vet said was, "Did you ever notice the early signs?" Sarah had. She just didn't know what they meant. That story is not unusual. In fact, it's one of the most common things veterinarians and dog behaviorists hear from owners. I saw something. I just didn't know it was serious. So today we're going to fix that. We're going to talk about the one signal that 99% of dog owners either misread or completely ignore. And we're going to go deep into the psychology behind it, the biology behind it, and the real-world consequences of missing it. Because this isn't just about behavior. This is about your dog's inner world. And your dog's inner world is trying to speak to you right now. Before we get into the signal itself, I need you to understand something about how dogs experience the world. Because if you don't understand this foundation, the rest won't make sense. Dogs are not small humans in fur coats. They don't process emotions the way we do. They don't sit with their feelings and reflect on them. Instead, their entire emotional state gets expressed through their body, their behavior, and their nervous system in real time. There is no hidden agenda. There is no manipulation. When a dog shows you something, it's because something inside them is happening right now, and they have no other way to tell you. This is what makes dogs so honest. And this is also what makes it so sad when we miss their signals. Because they're not being subtle on purpose. They're screaming in the only language they have. And we're just not listening. Now here's where it starts to get interesting. Most dog owners think they know what a stressed or unhappy dog looks like. They picture a dog cowering in the corner, a dog growling or snapping, a dog hiding under the bed trembling. And yes, those are signs. But those are late-stage signs. Those are signs that have already been building for a long, long time. What most people never see are the early signals, the quiet ones, the ones that look totally normal until you understand what they actually mean. And that's exactly what we're going to unpack right now. The signal I'm talking about is something called displacement behavior. And before you zone out because that sounds like a textbook term, let me tell you what it actually looks like in your living room, in your backyard, in your car, on the way to the vet. Because you've seen this. I promise you. You've seen this so many times and you've either laughed at it, found it cute, or completely looked past it. Has your dog ever suddenly stopped in the middle of something and started scratching himself? Not because he has fleas, not because his skin was itching. Just out of nowhere, a random scratch. And then it stopped, and he went back to whatever he was doing. Has your dog ever started yawning excessively? Not because he was tired, not because it was bedtime. Just a big yawn, right? In the middle of a tense moment. Has he ever started sniffing the ground intensely when you were trying to get him to do something? Or started licking his paws? Or suddenly shook his whole body like he just got out of water but he was completely dry? These are not random quirks. These are not cute little dog habits. These are your dog telling you something is wrong. And here's the part that gets most people. These behaviors are so common, so ordinary looking, that almost nobody recognizes them as a signal. That's the danger. The signal is hiding in plain sight. Let me explain what's actually happening inside your dog's brain and body when these behaviors occur. When a dog experiences emotional conflict, when they feel stressed, anxious, confused, or overwhelmed, their nervous system gets activated. Energy starts building up, and that energy has to go somewhere. In humans, we might tap our fingers, bite our nails, or start pacing when we're nervous. We don't even realize we're doing it. It's our nervous system releasing tension. Dogs do the exact same thing, but their release valves look like scratching, yawning, sniffing, licking, and shaking. These behaviors are called displacement behaviors precisely because the dog's emotional energy is being displaced into an irrelevant physical action to relieve internal pressure. So when you see your dog suddenly yawn in the middle of a training session, he's not bored. He's telling you he's overwhelmed. When he starts sniffing the ground while you're trying to call him over, he's not being stubborn. He's trying to cope with the stress of the situation. When he scratches himself out of nowhere during a conflict in your household, maybe you and a family member had a raised voice conversation nearby, he's not itching. He's managing anxiety. Do you see how different this is from what we normally assume? And this is where things get dangerous. Because when we misread these signals, we don't just fail to help our dog. We actually make things worse. Here's a scenario that plays out in thousands of homes every single day. A dog owner is trying to train their dog. The dog is doing well at first, but then starts to struggle with a particular command. The owner, frustrated, repeats the command louder. The dog starts scratching. The owner thinks, okay, he got distracted, and pushes harder. The dog yawns. The owner thinks he's being lazy and raises their voice again. The dog starts sniffing the ground and won't make eye contact. The owner thinks the dog is being defiant. So they correct the dog more firmly. And in that moment, what just happened? The dog was sending signal after signal that he was stressed and overwhelmed. And each time he sent that signal, instead of getting relief, the pressure increased. Now, think about what this does over time. If this happens repeatedly, the dog starts to associate training, or even the owner, with emotional pressure and stress. The dog begins to shut down. His confidence erodes. And eventually, the warm, playful, engaged dog you once had starts becoming anxious, withdrawn, or even reactive. Not because he's a bad dog, not because there's something wrong with him, but because for weeks or months, every time he asked for help in the only language he had, the message wasn't received. This is one of the most heartbreaking cycles in dog ownership. And the scary part is, it happens with the best of intentions. Good people. Loving dog owners. People who would do anything for their dogs. Missing this signal not because they don't care, but because they didn't know. But here's what I want you to understand, and this is crucial. This goes beyond training. These displacement behaviors don't just show up during training sessions. They show up everywhere. They show up in social situations. When your dog meets a new person and suddenly starts yawning or looking away, he might not be comfortable with that person even though his tail is wagging. Because here's a truth that a lot of people find surprising. A wagging tail does not always mean a happy dog. A wagging tail means an emotionally activated dog. It can mean joy. It can also mean anxiety, uncertainty, or even agitation, depending on the height of the tail, the speed of the wag, and what the rest of the body is doing at the same time. But nobody talks about this. So owners see the wagging tail, assume everything is fine, and ignore the yawn, the lip lick, and the weight, shifting from paw to paw, all of which are their dog saying, I'm not sure about this situation. These displacement behaviors also show up at the vet, at the groomer, in the car, when guests come over, when a new baby arrives in the home, when there's conflict between family members, when routines change suddenly. Dogs are exquisitely sensitive to emotional atmosphere. They absorb the emotional energy of their environment like a sponge. And when that energy becomes too much, the displacement behaviors begin. Now let's talk about what most dog owners do wrong when they notice something is off with their dog. Because even the owners who sense that something isn't right, usually, respond in ways that, again, with the best intentions, don't help and sometimes make things worse. The first mistake is flooding. This happens when an owner notices their dog seems uncomfortable in a situation and decides the best approach is just more exposure, more of the thing that's causing the stress. The thinking goes, he just needs to get used to it. But what this actually does is overwhelm the dog's nervous system without giving him the tools to cope. And a nervous system that gets flooded repeatedly either shuts down entirely or eventually explodes into reactivity. Neither outcome is what you want. The second mistake is reassurance at the wrong moment. This one is really hard to talk about because it goes against every instinct you have as a loving owner. When your dog is anxious, every fiber of your being wants to comfort him. You want to pet him, hold him, tell him it's okay. And there are moments when comfort is appropriate. But if your dog is in the middle of a displacement behavior spiral, body tense, yawning repeatedly, licking his lips, refusing to engage, and you swoop in with physical affection, you can actually reinforce the anxiety. Because from the dog's perspective, your frantic attention and the physical soothing is telling him that his assessment of the situation was correct, that there really is something to worry about. The emotional math in his brain says, she's nervous and comforting me, which means this situation really is dangerous, and the anxiety deepens. The third mistake, and this one is the most overlooked, is ignoring the environment. We spend so much time focused on what the dog is doing that we forget to look at what the dog is living in. Because displacement behaviors are a symptom, and like any symptom, if you only treat the surface without finding the root cause, it keeps coming back. Maybe your dog is living with chronic low-level stress because of noise sensitivity and your household is loud and unpredictable. Maybe there's been a change in routine that nobody thought was a big deal, but hit your dog hard. Maybe there's tension in the home that never gets acknowledged, but fills the air every single day. Dogs live in that tension, they breathe it, they carry it in their bodies, and they tell you they're carrying it through displacement behaviors that most owners never recognize for what they are. So what do you actually do when you start noticing these signals? The first thing, the most important thing, is to simply pause. When you see your dog yawn unexpectedly, or scratch out of nowhere, or suddenly become very interested in the ground, stop whatever is happening. Not in a dramatic way. Not in a way that adds more tension to the situation. Just create a quiet moment. Give your dog space to breathe. And watch what his whole body is telling you, not just the one behavior you noticed. The second thing is to reduce the pressure in whatever way you can. If you're in the middle of a training session, end it on a positive note and take a break. If your dog is meeting someone new, give him the option to approach on his own terms rather than being pushed toward the interaction. If something in the environment is causing stress, remove the stressor if possible, or create distance from it. The goal is not to remove all challenge from your dog's life. Challenge is healthy. Growth happens through gentle, gradual exposure to new things. The goal is to make sure the emotional pressure never exceeds what your dog can handle in that moment. And the only way to know where that line is to learn how to read the signals your dog is sending. The third thing, and this will sound simple, but it's genuinely profound, is to start watching your dog with fresh eyes. Not as a pet that needs to be managed, not as a training project, but as a living being with a rich inner life who is constantly communicating with you in a language that is entirely physical, entirely honest, and entirely available for you to understand if you're willing to learn it. Notice the yawns, notice the lip licks, notice the sudden scratching and the ground sniffing and the full body shakes. Start keeping a mental note of when these happen and what's going on in the environment when they do. You will start to see patterns. And those patterns will tell you more about your dog's emotional world than any behavioral quiz or temperament test ever could. Because here's the truth that most people never fully arrive at. And this is the realization I want you to walk away from this video with. The dog you have right now is already talking to you. He has been talking to you since the day you brought him home. Every yawn, every scratch, every time he sniffed the ground when you were frustrated with him, every full body shake in the driveway after a stressful car ride. That was communication. That was him telling you exactly how he felt in that moment, and that communication has never stopped. The only thing that was missing was your ability to understand it. Once you learn this language, once you genuinely start to see what displacement behaviors are and what they mean, you will never be able to unknow it. You will start seeing it everywhere. In your own dog, in dogs at the park, in dogs in videos online, and more importantly, you will start responding to your dog in ways that actually address what's happening inside him, not just what's visible on the surface. Your relationship with your dog will deepen in a way that's hard to put into words. Because true communication, the kind where both sides feel heard, changes everything. Sarah, the woman with Biscuit, eventually learned all of this. Too late to change what happened with Biscuit's health because some things can't be walked back. But she went on to adopt another dog, a nervous rescue named Penny, and from day one she watched Penny with new eyes. She saw the yawns and the lip licks and the ground sniffing, and she responded. She gave Penny space when Penny needed it. She slowed down when Penny's signals said slow down. She created a home where Penny's nervous system could gradually settle and feel safe. Within a year, Penny was a transformed dog, not because Sarah found a magic training method, but because Sarah learned how to listen. Your dog is asking you to listen too. Right now. Today. And now you have the language to finally hear what they're saying. If this changed the way you see your dog, share this video with someone who loves dogs. They need to hear this too. And if you want to keep going deeper into the world of dog psychology, understanding what your dog is really feeling, what they really need, and how to build the kind of bond that most people only dream of having with their pet, then make sure you're subscribed because we are just getting started.